Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. On today's video, you're going to be getting a 2-for-1 deal. I'm going to be making some bacon wrapped pork belly burnt ends along with some sliced pork belly. Stay tuned. All right, so we're starting with a 12-pound pork belly. Now I do have a little bit of silver skin that I'm going to take off. Now if you notice this section right here, it's a little bit mangled. That's not going to work too good for pork belly burnt ends, but it will work for my pork belly slices. So I'm going to be trimming this right around here. Then I'm going to cut another section, and that's what I'm going to be using for my pork belly slices. The rest of this is going to be for my bacon wrapped pork belly burnt ends. So to start, I'm going to go ahead and remove this section right here, around here. Cut it nice and straight. And I've got a nice sharp Del Strong knife, as you can see here. So I'm going to remove that section. Then I'm going to lay it on top of this. So I have two equal sections right here. And cut nice and straight. Just like that. Okay, so this is going to be for my pork belly slices right here. Now I am going to remove this silver skin here. So I'm going to use my boning knife for this. Pretty simple. Just stay right below that silver skin. Oops, I got my knife turned the wrong way. There we go. And then just cut across. Okay, lift up the flap and remove this silver skin right here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove some of this excess meat on the top right here, just to even it out so it cooks evenly. Okay, a little bit more silver skin here, and some more right here. Again, this is the thicker part of the pork belly, so I do need to remove some of this so it cooks evenly. There we go, just like that. So I'm going to cook these whole. Next, I'm going to be cutting this into strips for our pork belly burnt ends. So I do want about 1-inch squares right around there. See how many strips we get here. All right, so I've got 7 strips right here. I'm just going to move these aside. I'm going to cut these into cubes. Oops, didn't cut all the way through here. There we go. We're going to cut this into cubes, and I like to lay the pork belly on the side. It's easier to cut for me, okay? So about 1-inch squares. Just like that, okay? I'm gonna finish cutting these up and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so I've got my pork belly burnt ends into cubes. I'm just gonna toss them in this bowl. All right, so the first seasoning that I'm using for these bacon wrapped pork belly burnt ends is this Bam Habanero seasoning from Suckle Busters. This stuff is going to give it a really nice amount of heat. So just toss all the pork belly burnt ends in that delicious rub. Make sure they all get some of that deliciousness. All right, that looks good. Now the second rub that I'm using is also from Suckle Busters. This is the honey barbecue rub, okay? It's going to add a little bit of sweetness. So some of that heat and some of the sweet is going to pair extremely well. Okay, give that a toss. All right, so the next process, I'm just gonna grab a rack right here. Now I'm not gonna be using this tray when I place them in a smoker. I just don't wanna drop rub all over my counter. So just grab your pork belly burnt ends and stand them up with the fat cap up, okay? Just spread them out nice and even. right, so you do want to make sure that you leave a little bit of space to let that smoke work its way all around that pork belly burnt end. All right, I'm going to place these on the tray and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so I've got my pork belly burnt ends on this tray. Now let's work on the pork belly that we're going to be slicing. So I'm going to be using two different rubs than we did on the pork belly burnt ends. These two rubs are from LC Barbecue, and I got to tell you, if you've never used them before, check them out. I'm going to be leaving links inside the description box so you can order yourself some. Just add a light layer on both sides. This is more of an all-purpose rub, okay? Just going to add, again, a light layer of this. Grab your sides. So one of the things that I like when you buy pork belly is that you can see the entire pork belly through the package. And I like to select a pork belly that's got more meat than fat, as you can see right here, okay? All right, that looks good right there. The second rub that we're using is also from LC Barbecue. This is their last call rub. So this rub right here is going to give us a really nice color and add a ton of flavor to these pork belly slices. So I'm going to be smoking these in my Yodo Frontiersman today. It's already warming up outside. We'll see you guys in a bit. Stay tuned. All right, so we're outside of my Yodo Frontiersman and current temperature is 250 degrees. So I'm going to be smoking these between 250 and 275, okay? I just dropped a split, so the temperature is going to go up a little bit. So I'm going to place my pork belly that we're going to use for slices up front, right here. And my pork belly burnt ends right back here, okay? So I'm going to let these smoke for 2 hours. We'll come back and take a look at them. Stay tuned. All right, so it's been 3 hours since I put the pork belly on. I did come back at the 2 hour mark and it just didn't have the right color, and it does now, okay? So look at these pork belly burnt ends. A lot of the fat has rendered off. So these are ready to be placed in a foil pan. All right, so I've got all the pork belly burnt ends on this aluminum pan. Next thing, I'm going to put some butter. Add some creaminess to these burnt ends. And this butter is quickly going to melt because these burnt ends are extremely hot. Okay, just like that. I'm not going to be adding any brown sugar because I'm using some of this Cosmos Q apple habanero rib glaze. So just put this glaze all over this. Look at that goodness. Next thing I'm adding to these burnt ends is this Cosmos Q OPX1. This barbecue sauce right here is fantastic. One of the best I've ever had. Okay, just pour it over the top like this. Right about now, you can start playing some Barry White music. Oh yeah. All right, so I'm gonna cover this pan with some foil. Place them back inside my smoker. And this pork belly is looking fantastic, okay? So I'm just gonna put this in some foil as well, but no glaze or no sauce, okay? Just straight up pork belly. Trust me, you don't need anything else. Some of that fat rendering is gonna help get this really nice and tender. All right, so I've got the burnt ends and the pork belly all wrapped up. We're gonna give this about an hour, let some of that fat render off a little bit more. Again, my pit is still running at 265 degrees. We'll check back in 1 hour. Stay tuned. All right, so it's been 1 hour since we wrapped up our pork belly burnt ends. So they have been basting in this delicious, buttery, sweet sauce. Okay, and they have rendered a ton of fat. All right, so as you can see, a lot of the fat has rendered off. This full pan is completely filled with some of that butter, that barbecue sauce, and obviously some of the fat that is rendered off. Look at that. So I'm just gonna grab one of these burnt ends, and this is where we're gonna wrap them in bacon. So I did split the bacon in half, just cut it in half with some scissors. So take your pork belly burnt end and put it right in the middle of the bacon, okay, and fold it over the top, just like this. Okay. Pull the other end. And come over the top just like this. Now I am going to be using toothpicks to keep these together. So grab a toothpick and put it right in the middle of that bacon. Okay, so that's what you want right there. Okay, let me show you guys one more. I'm going to place these back on the rack that we started on earlier. So grab your pork belly burnt end, put it right in the middle of bacon, stretch your bacon over it, just like that. Grab a toothpick and go right down the middle. Okay, there you go. Put them back on the rack where we started. All right, so I'm going to get these done and I'll bring you guys right back. Stay tuned. All right, so I've got about half of the pork belly burnt ends wrapped in bacon. Now I did move these to the front because it is hotter here, closer to that firebox. As you can see, I left half of them unwrapped. So I did move the pork belly that I'm going to be slicing to the bottom shelf right here, still wrapped in foil. Okay, so the total wrap time on the pork belly that I'm going to be slicing is going to be 2 hours wrapped. All right, so I'm going to let that bacon get nice and crispy. Should take about 45 minutes. I am going to be ramping up the temperature to 300 degrees. In about 30 minutes, I'm going to come back and pull these off, cover them in foil. Stay tuned. All right, so the pork belly is completely done. Let's take a look at the pork belly that we smoked for slicing. Look at that little loaf right there. This is going to make for some really good pork belly sandwiches. So I've got my carving set here from Delstrong, which is extremely sharp. It's shredding a little bit. It's really tender. It's coming apart almost. Okay, look at that. All right, so there's our sliced up pork belly, looking mighty fine. Check out these bacon wrapped burnt ends. Look at this. That bacon is nice and crispy on the outside. I was glazing it with that sauce that we used for a bath early in the cook. So those are gonna be fantastic. So here's our traditional pork belly burnt end with no bacon. I'm gonna plate this food up. We'll come back and give it a try. Stay tuned. All right, let's give this pork belly a try. The first thing I'm gonna try is this bacon wrapped pork belly burnt ends. Has some of that glaze on it. I was gonna cut it in half, but let's just go for it. Here we go. Holy smokes, that is absolutely delicious. You know, it's got a good smoky flavor, then that bacon, the sauce, a little bit of heat from this Bam habanero seasoning. That is fantastic. Now I'm gonna try this pork belly with the LC barbecue rubs. Look at that. This is gonna make some great sandwiches. Here we go. So tender. So those pork belly slices are so full of flavor as well. Really nice and tender and smoky. That is money right there. All right, last but not least, let's try the traditional pork belly burnt end. Here we go. It's like butter. All right, so this entire pork belly is absolutely delicious, but if I had to pick a favorite, it would be this bacon wrapped pork belly burnt ends with some of that Cosmos Q OPX1 and that glaze. These are really good. Don't forget to check that description box. There you're gonna find some items that I used in this video, from the rubs to the knives to this cutting board that I used. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions, ask them down below. Until next time, Joe with Smokin Joe's Spit Barbecue. See ya.